Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And probably the most important updates are coming from the United States of America, where the elected president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, made a lot of very interesting statements. As you know, currently he is talking a lot about Canada as the 51st state of the United States of America, about Greenland, about possible confrontation with Denmark, and of course about the Panama. So what kind of statements Donald Trump made during the previous day? First of all, Trump threatens Denmark with tariffs over Greenland. Another important statement that Trump says that he plans to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Another important statement, Trump says that he understands Russia's feelings about Ukraine's unacceptability of joining NATO. Very interesting statement, by the way. Another important statement that Trump said that he is already in discussions with Panamanian authorities on the issue of the Panama Canal, which he intends to return to U.S. control. According to Donald Trump, the Panama Canal is currently under complete control of China and Russia. Trump refused to pledge not to use military force to take control over of Greenland and Panama Canal. And another important thing, that Ukraine and Russia almost reached an agreement, but Biden said that Ukraine should be a member of NATO, and the agreement did not happen. That was stated by Trump. So as you can see, Donald Trump hasn't become president yet, but he has already made lots of statements. We're gonna see what is going to happen next. But for example, as for Canada, Canadian Foreign Minister referring to Trump's comments, "We will never back down in the face of threats." Canadian Foreign Minister Trump's comments about Canada show a complete lack of understanding of what makes Canada a strong country. Of course, we'll see what is going to happen in the next half a year, but obviously something big is going to happen. Now let's discuss the situation in Ukraine, and first we're going to talk about the line of combat contact in the Sudzha direction, where the Russians continue their own counter-offensive operation. I'll remind you that on the 5th and the 6th on January, the Ukrainians made their own attempt to attack, but those attacks were repelled. The Ukrainians were completely defeated, suffered significant losses. And when the Ukrainians were defeated, the Russians began their own offensive operation. First, let's discuss the situation in the area of Berdin. According to different sources, yesterday on the 7th of January, according mainly to pro-Russian sources, the village of Berdin was completely secured by the Russians. But as for the beginning of the 8th of January, we just start receiving updates from the northern part of the settlement. In this video, we can see how the Russian stormtroopers were clearing one building after another. So based on this video, we have adjusted the map in Russian favor, and we still have some doubts whether the Russians establish or return control over the southern part of the settlement. Most likely this part of Berdin either in the gray zone or under complete Ukraine control. Let's wait for more, obviously. We continue receiving reports from the settlement of Russkaya Porечная and Cherkasnaya Porечная. The Russians, the second day in a row, continue reporting that as a result of offensive operation, they managed to restore complete control over Russkaya Porечная, and currently there are very heavy clashes on the territory of Cherkasskaya Porечная, once again without any geolocations that can confirm this. Very interesting details and updates are coming from the territory of Malaya Loknya. Today the Ukrainian sources published the video of how they were bombing and attacking the Russian soldiers to the west of Novaya Sorochna and to the northwest of Malaya Loknya. In this video we can see another offensive operation from the Russian side, lots of Russian stormtroopers that were attacking Ukrainian positions. Based on this video, we have adjusted this small part of the forest in Russian favor. As for different mappers, pro-Ukrainian sources are saying that as a result of offensive operation, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly and to reach the outskirts of the settlement of Novaya Sorochna and Staraya Sorochna. So let's compare the map between the dates. For example, this is the map by the end of the 7th of January. As you can see, these trees and these forest belts were under complete Russian-Ukraine control, and as for the beginning of the 8th of January, everything was captured by the Russians. So let's wait and see what is going to be next. The Russians established complete FPV drone control over the settlement of Malaya Loknya. The Ukrainians are trying to stabilize the situation by sending more and more forces, but everything that comes in this area being destroyed by the Russians with the use of fiber optic FPV drones. So no chances for the Ukrainians to hold their lines, or they will hold the lines but paying significant price for this. Very interesting details are coming from the southern part of Sudzha. The Russians during the previous 24 hours made 2 attempts to attack. They made not 2 attempts, they made more attempts to attack, but they were using 3 roads of attack. The Russians were attacking the Ukrainian positions along the southern streets of the village of Makhnovka, and the Russians were attacking the Ukrainian positions using the eastern street of the village of Makhnovka. The Ukrainian sources published a lot of videos of how they were trying to bomb and attack Russian assault troopers that were attacking Ukrainian positions. Lots of artillery strikes. The Ukrainians were using cluster munition, so they were doing everything they can with the purpose to stabilize the situation to stop the Russian offensive. And the same story took place in the southern street. Another group of Russian stormtroopers, as you can see in this video, was entering the northern part of Makhnovka. The Ukrainians were trying to bomb and attack the Russians, also with the purpose to stop them. We don't know for sure whether the Russians managed to improve their positions or not, but different mappers reported that the village of Makhnovka was completely captured by the Russians as a result of those 2 attacks. That was stated by neutral mappers, by pro-Russian mappers, and by another pro-Russian resource. So if this information is correct, if the Russians indeed managed to take under control the village of Makhnovka, most likely the next target for the Russians is to maintain the line of combat contact between the village of Makhnovka and the village of Agronom. For these purposes, the Russians will have to take under control the village of Dmitrikov, the village of Kolmakov, and the village of Bondaryovka. So we expect that this is exactly what the Russians are going to do next. If the Russians are able to complete this mission, then the battle for Sudzha itself will start, because this is already like Sudzha, not like let's say outskirts or part of agglomeration. This is going to be indeed the Sudzha itself. Now let's move further. Let's discuss the situation in the northern Kupiansk direction, where, according to information we have, the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to establish complete control over the settlement of Dvorichna. More precisely, over the part of Dvorichna that is located on the Russian side of the river of Nizhny Dvorichna. So everything that is located inside of this red line was captured by the Russians during the previous 24-48 hours. We are waiting for additional changes on the ground from different mappers and some geolocations that can confirm this. If this information is correct, then the situation for the Ukrainians is getting worse and worse, and this is already almost a foothold of brigade level. If the Russians are able to concentrate 1 brigade in this side of the river of Oskol, then the Russians will have no problems to move further in the western and the southwestern directions. Very interesting details are coming from the northern Kupiansk direction. While the Russians are trying to attack the Ukrainian positions in the settlement of Boguslavka, I'll remind you that several days ago the Russians managed to break through the Ukrainian defense belt, and the Russians are increasing their pressure in this area. The Ukrainians decided to attack the Russians from behind, and as a result of Ukrainian offensive operation, they managed to improve their positions and to restore control over half or something like this of the village of Kolesnikovka. In this video that was published by the Ukrainian sources, we can see how the Ukrainians were attacking the Russian positions with the use of fighting infantry vehicles. The Ukrainian fighting infantry vehicle managed to reach the southern outskirts of Kolesnikovka, which confirms that Ukrainians have strong control over this territory. Once again, the main purpose of the Ukrainians is to slow down the Russian offensive in the southern direction. And we have adjusted the map based on Ukrainian attack. The Russians see everything, so that's why during the previous 3 days they were mainly focused on destroying and attacking Ukrainian logistic. For example, on the 6th of January of 2025, the Russian sources published the video how they destroyed another pontoon bridge between the western and the eastern bank of the river Oskol that Ukrainians were using to supply their forces on the Russian side of the river. On the 7th of January, we got the video how the Russians destroyed another bridge between Kivsharovka, between the settlement of Kivsharovka and the settlement of Kolesnikovka. So in this video, another missile strike and another bridge was destroyed. So 2 days in a row, the Russians were destroying Ukrainian logistic, as you can see. And on the 8th of January, we got another video once again from the river of Oskol, how the Russians destroyed another pontoon bridge in this area with the purpose to slow the Ukrainian downs and not allow them to bring additional reinforcements with the purpose to stabilize the situation and to counterattack the Russians from the north. And the Russians were bombing and attacking the city of Kupiansk-Uzlovoy with the use of up 1500. So as you can see, the Russians currently are not planning to attack the north in Kupiansk direction, but they are trying to do everything they can with the purpose to stabilize the situation and not to allow the Ukrainians to attack them from behind, while the main Russian forces are trying to attack in the southern direction. Whether the Russians are managed to complete this, finish this task or not, we will find out during the next several days. Now let's move further. Let's discuss the situation in the Lyman direction. It's already not even the southern Kupiansk, it's already the Lyman direction. According to information we have, the Russians managed to break through the Ukrainian defense belt and breach the outskirts of the settlement by the name of Kolodezi. So the Russians managed to answer and to capture several strongholds in this area, and currently there are very heavy clashes for this settlement. If the Russians are able to take this settlement under complete control, we're talking about the village of Kolodezi, then this is going to be a huge problem for the Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians in Zarichne could be caught in operational encirclement when the Russians began offensive operation in the southern directions along the river of Zherebets. So very critical situation for the Ukrainians in this area as well, and currently nobody can tell for sure whether the Ukrainians have enough of forces to stabilize the situation and not to allow the Russians to take additional territories. But I'll remind you that according to information we have, the Ukrainians ordered to improve positions and defense around the city of Izum and the city of Balakleya. So the Russians are going to restore control over the territories they lost during the Ukrainian counter-offensive operation in 2023. Now let's move further. Important updates are coming from the city of Toretsk. Today the Ukrainian sources published another video of how they were attacking and FPV-droning the Russian positions in the most northern part of the settlement. So as you can see, the Russians are finishing the battle for the citadel, for the city of Toretsk. And once again, maybe the city was already captured by the Russians, but now they're just trying to clear the city, to demine the area, to destroy the rest, the additional some pockets of resistance that might still be present on the territory of the settlement. So it's just the finalizing and nothing more. Now let's discuss the situation in the Kurakhova direction. According to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly and to take under control up to 50% of the settlement of Slavyanka. So this information was provided us by pro-neutral sources. So this is the situation in this area. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians began offensive operation in the direction of Dachne, and as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to improve their positions between the settlement of Kurakhova and the settlement of Dachne itself by taking additional 3 lines fortifications, former Ukraine fortifications, under complete control. On the other side, the Russians continue advancing along these 3 lines in the fields, trying to outflank the village of Dachne from the north and to establish complete, maybe even physical control over N15 road between the village of Ulakli and the village of Dachne itself. So the Russians continue maneuvering in this area, trying to force the Ukrainians to fall back. According to information we have, the Russians also managed to improve their positions in the direction of Novosilka. This is very interesting, development of the armored force of Russian Federation, and maybe the Russians have some other plans, but not to attack Velika Novosolovka in front, but they will try to maybe make outflanking operation or maneuvering operation with the purpose to take as many as possible territories and to cut them into operational encirclement or in cauldron. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.